Arthur? I hardly know her. Allow me to regale you with the story of a fallen kingdom, one full of dark secrets and tainted tales. There are no heroes here, just different flavors of badness mixed together. This is the story of Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon, one of only a handful of titles deserving of the label Scrolls-like, as this is fully grim Skyrim, or should I say Skygrim. Tainted Grail is a brand new immersive RPG set in a dark reimagining of Arthurian legends and stories, available on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. Developed by Questline and published by Awaken Realms, Tainted Grail does not shy away from what inspired it, but instead embraces the clear Elder Scrolls influences and attempts to do something a little bit different while feeling all so familiar at the same time. I want to preface this, I guess I'll call it an impressionable review, as it's not really a first impressions or full review, but the fact that while I was helpfully provided a key and early review copy accessed by the developers, this is not a sponsored video in any way. And in fact, the devs urged creators to be fully transparent and open with their reviews, thoughts, and feedback. I wouldn't call myself a reviewer normally, and it's obviously not my typical content, but this game was too intriguing to not explore and preview with all of you, my viewers, due to its proximity to the Elder Scrolls and honestly Dark Souls franchise. If you find yourself enjoying the video, as always, like and subscribe for more, and let's see if this game Excaliburns your attention. So what is Tainted Grail? Well, as I stated, it's a dark RPG set in the world of Arthurian legends, with quite a few references to those classics right off the bat and woven throughout its narrative. And I mean dark, like growing out your hair, dyeing it black, and slapping on some guy liner dark. I'd say in tone and atmosphere, it's much closer to a Dark Souls than an Elder Scrolls, as it completely lacks the, well, I'd call it probably the more whimsical, lighthearted adventure vibe that permeates the Scrolls series, as even in its darkest moments, it never dwells on the horror and violence like Tainted Grail seems to revel within. Dark pools of blood, overtly sexual content, torture, unspeakable acts, and evil and violence. The greatest hits are all here, and, well, I'm here for it, like the twisted freak I am. It's an intense aesthetic that demands to be taken seriously, invoking more BERSERK than Skyrim, if anything. Having been in early access now for over 2 years, the game has gone through several massive updates and improvements, and now at full release, and through my experience so far, is shockingly well crafted and put together. Considering how intricate and difficult these games can be in developing a believable fantasy world, with all the unique interactions and mechanics you'd expect, I'm extremely impressed so far with the amount of polish and detail I'm finding. Interactable objects, physics, a reactive world, the developer team I believe is only like 50 people or so, and I have to commend them for their ambition and vision, as these types of sprawling RPGs are no small task to create. There's a reason Scrolls-likes aren't really a thing outside of a very small handful of games, and Tainted Grail not only captures so many of these elements, but does so while boasting 50 to 70 hours of content throughout a single playthrough. I haven't played Avowed, but Tainted Grail undoubtedly is the closest I've found to realizing that same level of open world freedom and scale as a Skyrim. Though in its overall scope and polish, it's clearly not quite a AAA experience. Even still, the game boasts a massive amount of content with dozens of quests, NPCs, dungeons, weapons, gear, and secrets to find. I don't think a lack of things to do will be an issue with this game. To be honest, with this and Oblivion Remastered launching, I'm feeling a little spoiled as an Elder Scrolls fan, and well, we deserve that. While I won't go into spoilers, the narrative so far of Tainted Grail is extremely intriguing. The opening cinematic is a great hook, promising a dark and complex world ravaged by something called the Red Death, and permeation of a malignant eldritch force called the Weirdness, an entity that can alter both mind and body, very much channeling for me a type of Lovecraftian concept. And so far, the plot only accelerates and unravels from there. Apparently there are dozens of variations of the ending based on your choices throughout the game, though I can't say I know how varied these will be yet, or what types of cause and effects are present in the world itself. But I've already come across several divergent paths within the quests themselves. Embracing even more Elder Scrolls inspiration, the game kicks off with your character locked inside a dungeon, though this is more of a torture asylum than straight up prison. You're being held here as you are a carrier of the Red Death Plague, and the priests here heroically try to cure you through various forms of torture and suffering. It's immediately apparent what vibe the devs are going for here, as one of your captors gets promptly murdered by a mysterious and classic stealth archer, and you are then free to roam about the game's tutorial dungeon. One filled with all types of interactables, weapons, and gear to find that give you a taste of what's to come, also filled with cursed and decaying bodies, fantasy smut that would make even the lustiest of Argonian maids blush, tools of torture, and more. It really sets the mood and atmosphere for the game going forward, and even as you enter the more open world and larger areas later, that dark oppressive atmosphere never really goes away. As I mentioned, the game doesn't really seem to take a linear approach to its storytelling, instead offering branching dialogue options and various ways to complete quests, giving the player agency to act within the world as they see fit. While I can't say with a great deal of confidence how much these dialogue options actually change the world and the world state, their presence and the idea of branching endings to the game definitely intrigue me to try several different types of playthroughs already. There are a ton of quests and things to discover as you encounter and interact with the denizens of Avalon as well. This world is one of despair, and while it's not exactly post-apocalyptic, it certainly feels like it's teetering right on the edge of that fate. The best way I can probably describe this setting is it feels like a Dark Souls game just before everything goes completely to shit. And actually many of the NPCs in their dialogue have very Souls-like vibes as well, with cryptic, disturbing, threatening, and sometimes comically edgy voice lines.
Off the leash, are we? They must have had their fun with you.
The voice acting, I would say, is very well done. However, there are a few missed lines here and there that the developers have promised will be coming soon. But I've been really impressed with the level of polish and how much voice acting is actually present throughout the experience given how long this game actually is. Being a Scrolls-like, Tainted Grail offers a variety of gameplay mechanics and approaches to both combat and navigation throughout the world. All the classics make an appearance: swords, stealth, bows, stealth with bows, and the occasional spell thrown here and there, with many of your starting traits and skills being determined by a handful of questions asked by one of your torturers, as opposed to a more classic class system. The game features a fairly in-depth spell system though, and I'm pretty happy with the assortment I've been able to find so far, as I am playing my go-to spell sword class and playstyle as I do in my initial playthrough of any Scrolls game. I'm happy to report though that that playstyle is very much alive and well, as Tainted Grail uses Skyrim's dual-wielding system. Having a blade, spell, or shield in one, both, or either hand is a fantastic system, and so far has worked extremely well for me. Melee combat has, I would say, more depth than Skyrim's or Oblivion's too, with perfect blocks or parries and dodging mechanics creating vastly more dynamic combat and tactile feeling to slashing and bashing. Enemies will approach you with a variety of attacks and movesets, and I was happy to see even the simple zombies have a type of lunge attack that keeps you on your toes. Combat has honestly been a blast, and the learning curve has been really fun to try and master as I work on perfecting spacing and dodging, as this game is actually fairly difficult. Being a lightly armored quick combatant feels way more viable than a traditional Scrolls game, as the dash really opens up your hit and run options. It also seems like there's a really strong set of options for playstyle too, from heavy armor brute with a massive two-hander to a solely spell-slinging mage to the classic and powerful stealth archer. And I just have to mention the game features spears as a weapon type, already raising it several points in my book. Given the size and experience of the developers, I'm honestly really impressed with how solid the combat feels. While it may not have the full and complete polish of a AAA experience, striking enemies feels extremely satisfying. It features brutal and badass finishing kill animations, and overall, I find the animations and impact are up there with the best of them in terms of pure feel. It's the sword of combat that bashes you over the head and cuts through any misgivings you may have about the game. I've also been impressed with the variety of armors and loot hidden throughout the world as well, and a focus on exploration has clearly been a design philosophy driving the developers. Speaking of armor, I'm yet to find anything in the game that doesn't mesh well with its world or just look absolutely fantastic and realistic. And I'm feeling like I'm barely scratching the surface in terms of things to discover still. It's not all just hack and slash doom and gloom and gore, however. Tainted Grail does feature other mechanics like cooking, alchemy, and even fishing to create variety and further immerse the player into its world. Regardless of your taste, it seems like there's something here to scratch almost any playstyle itch players may have, and I'm already excited to try a full mage or stealthy playthrough, which is a really good sign. While combat and the general aesthetic has probably been the most enjoyable part of the experience for me so far, which is good considering 90% of your time will be spent cracking skulls, I have to mention the wonderful exploration and the world of Tainted Grail itself. Though smaller in scope than, say, Skyrim, with the world being broken into a few major areas as you progress through the acts, the sheer variety and number of open areas, dungeons, caves, camps, and more to discover has been an absolute blast. I really appreciate the approach to looting, as you won't just be finding weapons and armor, though those are plentiful as well, but spells, crafting recipes, quest starting items, and lore tidbits will be scattered around waiting to be discovered too. Being a spell sword, it creates for me a very strong incentive to explore, as unlike Skyrim where spells are primarily purchased from vendors, spells in Tainted Grail seem to be primarily found through the world itself, and the moment you find one, you unlock its potential and can begin slinging it almost immediately. It creates just another hook to search every nook and cranny in every location, and the variety of them has me excited to find the next one. Even in the first few hours, you'll see a variety of environments and number of hidden secrets, and though I've been avoiding spoilers for the most part, footage and screenshots I've seen of later acts has me extremely hyped to discover these locations for myself. Unique bosses, named enemies, secrets to discover, there is just a ton to find within the game, and once again I find myself feeling like I've barely scratched the surface a dozen or so hours in. But don't let me further taint your perception here. Is Tainted Grail worth your time? The team at Questline really seems to have captured something special here, and instead of the Oblivion remaster taking the wind out of their sails with its shadow drop, I honestly think it'll be the opposite for the full release of Tainted Grail, as interest and desire for more new Scrolls gameplay experiences will hopefully drive increased traffic towards this game, as I fully believe it deserves it. While it is a AA game and has some flaws or rough patches here and there, I can't deny the sheer passion and effort that has seemingly been put into this title. My only real major gripes are bug and performance related, as while it runs steady for me, I've noticed multiple stutters and have hard crashed a few times within my experience. But if bugs held me back from enjoying a Scrolls-like, well, I probably would have never played a single one of them. Although I do hope performance and stability are addressed quickly. If you're a fan at all of dark fantasy, RPGs, or any Elder Scrolls game, I think Tainted Grail is well worth your time and money, as so far I've been having an absolute blast with it. I think it's a project and developer worth supporting, and even if it has some roughness or lack of polish compared to larger, more expensive titles, I love how hard they swung for the fences with this one. Version 1.0 and full release goes live tomorrow, or maybe live by the time you watch this, so keep an eye out for it. Thanks for watching. I know this isn't my typical content, but if you enjoyed the video, let me know by liking, commenting, and subscribing, or if there's even interest in seeing some rogue rankings of Tainted Grail's various items and areas, I'd be totally down for that as well. But for now, that's it for me. Until next time.